The JSE All-Share Index has been trading at more than 2% in the green. That was an early trade, trading easing fears of a global inflation and boosted by a jump in heavyweight Naspers. Petri Redelinghuys is trader and founder of Herenya Capital Advisors. He joins us now to talk about the latest on the markets. Petri, good to have you as always. As ever, let's begin with a sense of how the markets opened after ending firmer. That was on Friday.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I mean, we're out the blocks today quite strong. All-share index currently up around 2.5%. A lot of that obviously on the back of Naspers being up around 22.5%. It's wild. Process also up around 18.4%. A lot of the gold stocks doing relatively well. So it seems as though we are seeing quite a strong move from, some of the mineral mining stuff, metals mining companies, as well as obviously the Naspers news that was, or Naspers/process news. That's pretty huge, and the market is reacting very, very positively to that. So a good start. And also, to be fair, we had a solid end to the week last week in the US as well. The S&P 500 and most US markets really rallied very, very strongly. And I think that momentum is likely to carry through for at least until the middle of the week as we go into the end of the month and quarter. So a good start to the week, and hopefully we can maintain this strength at least until the middle of the week or the end of the month, as the saying goes.
There was a big countdown watch yesterday for Russia to make that $100 million debt payment. That deadline has now passed. Will there be any repercussions, any consequences?
I guess this is an interesting debate, right? Because they're essentially citing force majeure, which is, an act of God or something beyond our control. Russia says, look, we have the money to pay, but you've cut us off from the international payment system, so even though we want to pay it, you won't accept payment from us. The other alternative is for them to pay in rubles, but nobody wants to accept those either. So I guess at the moment it's kind of just a symbolic default, if you will. What the exact sort of fallout is going to be is not really, I think, very clear at this stage, because I don't really know, to be honest with you. It's the first time in like 100 years or something, like over 100 years, 104 years or something, that Russia has actually defaulted on any kind of debt. Luckily, they're in a position that they don't have a huge amount of external debt or non-ruble-based debt. They're very, very lightly indebted as a country. But I really don't know what happens from here. I mean, obviously, they're still making quite a bit of money selling oil and earning dollars. But those are finding their way into Russia through other channels, via China and that kind of stuff. So the question is really, what happens now? And I don't know how to answer that. They have the money available to pay the payments, or make the payments, pay the debts off. But the rest of the world is kind of, completely isolating their economy, isolating their payment systems. So there's no way that Russia, even if they wanted to, could pay it, and they have the money available, and that's their argument, right? So right now, I guess, nothing happens, right? And we have to kind of wait and see what happens. I mean, at this stage, it's not like what normally happens if you don't pay your debt. You lose your sovereign credit rating, sort of gets downgraded, you lose access to credit markets. They don't have these things at the moment anyway. All the ratings agencies stopped covering them. They've been blocked out of global financial markets for the large part, in any case, because of what's happening in Ukraine and their invasion of Ukraine. So I don't think the Russians care very much, to be honest, and I don't think the rest of the market cares too much either. So obviously there are some debt holders that are very unhappy, but there's nothing that can really be done about it at this stage. So I think this is one of those things that at some point they'll sit around a negotiating table and say, well, look, let's have peace talks with Ukraine. And this is one of the points that will be tabled at the time, I would imagine. But for now, I guess nothing happens, really.
Naspers, who we spoke about a short time ago in process, are planning now to start a long-term open-ended share purchase program. How would those plans work for the buyback?
So there's a couple of things here. One, it's an open-ended share repurchase program. So basically every day, and we've seen other companies like British American Tobacco, for example, I've been doing this for years, where every day they just buy some shares back, right? So as time goes by, they're buying shares back in the open market, essentially reducing the number of shares in issue and kind of concentrating the holding a little bit, but also increasing dividends and that kind of stuff. So there's lots of benefits why that's a good thing for the shareholders that obviously don't sell, right? But the bigger news here is that, two things. One, they're disposing of JD.com. They have a stake in that, which they're basically getting out. And we're just going to group Naspers and Prosus together as one here, because Prosus owns a lot of the stuff and Naspers owns a lot of Prosus, right? So we'll just sort of lump them together as one. So firstly, they're kind of getting rid of their stake in JD.com, which raises a few $1 billion for them, right? Also, what they're going to start doing is slowly start to unwind and sell off some of their holdings in Tencent in China. So shareholders obviously have been very unhappy with the large valuation gap between, what the value of their share is in Tencent and what the value of the Naspers/Prosus share is here. And there's a big valuation gap that, Naspers/Prosus is very deeply undervalued. So with them starting to liquidate and sell some of the stuff now, and obviously they still have a fairly significant stake, and they're not going to sell all of it, but they're going to, over time, slowly sell off some of the Naspers or some of the Tencent holding, and then use that cash, I would imagine, to buy some of their own shares back. This is, I think, looking at the market reaction, what the market had sort of been hoping for in terms of a value unlock. There has to be some way that we can get the value that, the true value of what this investment is worth, and this seems to be a way that's got shareholders very excited, and therefore we see the share price now up 23%. So it's
some good news out of it.
So some good news at least, yeah, for shareholders.
I've just been looking at something else here, actually to do with Tonga Hewlett, who've now abandoned a planned 5 billion rand rights offer. Why?
So they basically got somebody to underwrite, I think, 2 billion of the 5 billion rights offer. So they're called Magistar Investments or something to that effect, out of Mauritius, if I'm not mistaken. And basically they sort of stood ready and said, look, we will guarantee we'll give you 2 billion to take part in the rights offer, and there's only about 3 billion then that needs to be raised from the rest of the market. And then this in this sort of underwriting agreement that they made. So there's obviously a takeover regulation panel that looks at these things and makes sure that these deals can take place, that everything is above board. Sorry, it's not Mauritius, it's Zimbabwe. In any case, what has been found by this takeover panel during their sort of investigation and due diligence on this deal was that Magisters, I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce it, had been buying some Tonga Hewlett shares leading up to the underwriting agreement and to the rights offer. So that to them feels a little bit like, well, look, you're willing to underwrite, but you were in the open market buying shares leading up to this, kind of pressuring the company, to do it, to do a rights offer and all that kind of stuff. And they're not quite happy that, that was all sort of done above board. So there's obviously quite a bit of negotiation and that type of stuff that now has to happen with the takeover panel. And the timeline over which this is going to take place is just too long. They needed this to be done sort of by the end of the month. And it doesn't seem that it's going to be done by the end of the month. So on the 24th of June, which was last week, they said, look, we're cancelling this rights offer and we're walking away from it because, we're not willing to, the takeover panel won't approve essentially the rights offer deal, because Magister will end up with a very big share in the business, and they feel that the way that they've gone about doing that is not necessarily the most ethical. Let's
end with RMH Property, because now they're going to sell a stake in Atterbury Europe for 1.7 billion rand. Is that a good price?
Yeah. I don't know. I think property prices in Europe have been under a bit of pressure. It's probably not the best time to be selling now. But they're not just selling this. They're also selling, it's got a 34.1% stake in FirstRand. So they're probably going to be unloading some of that as well. So it seems as though basically Rand Merchant Investments has been on a bit of a track to streamline its business and to kind of once again unlock value for shareholders. This is a big theme essentially, because a lot of these holding companies have shares in great businesses but aren't always able to represent fair value to the people who then in turn own the holding companies, right? The shareholders there. So yeah, I guess it's a fair price. I mean, it's a huge amount of money to be coming into the balance sheet. And if we look at how the share responded on Friday, it rallied quite strongly from around 1 rand sort of 55 to around 1 rand 71, 1 rand 72. So that's a very, very big move So shareholders obviously very pleased with that deal. The question that I have is, what do they do with the money? Do they return it to shareholders in form of special dividend? Do they reinvest it in some new venture that they want to back? We know that Rand Merchant Investment Holdings has a strong history of sort of funding smaller businesses and helping them grow. So let's hope they put that capital to good use.
Quick final one. What would you do with 1.75 billion rand?
I'd go on holiday. There's lots of things, man. I think that we have, I would try to incubate small businesses. I think we need to create jobs. There's a big need for that in South Africa.
I hear you, but you had me at holiday. For now, thank you very much.
But I'd go on holiday first.
Petri Redelinghuys, good to speak to you. Enjoy the rest of your day.